Welcome to Mojo Plays. Majora's Mask is one of the greatest entries in The Legend of Zelda and my personal favorite game of all time. And it's turning 25 this year. So, to celebrate everything that is so wonderfully odd about this adventure, we're looking at 25 fun facts you may or may not know about the game. But before we dive in, we publish new content all week long. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Majora's name comes from Jurassic Park. There has been a lot of speculation about how the Zelda team came up with the name for the game's central antagonist held inside the titular mask. Some thought it might have been derived from the Majora culture, but there's little evidence to support this. Over the years, those who have worked on the project have confirmed that art director Takaya Imamura combined his own name with one of his favorite films. While there had been conjecture that the film in question was Jumanji, Imamura confirmed it was Jurassic Park, taking the Jura to create Majora, or when translated to English, Majora.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Blending in at Iana Castle. The land of Iana is a harrowing place, housing a once great civilization that was devastated by war, and then a terrible curse that brought its citizens back from the dead. Making your way through the castle at the heart of it is no small task, but knowing a particular trick can make some rooms much more painless. Groups of re-deads inside will mistake Link for an ally if he wears one of the masks acquired in the area: the Captain's Hat, Garrow's Mask, or Gibdo Mask. Instead of attacking, they will perform for him, revealing that they are the dancing troupe mentioned by one of the Gossip Stones. Furthermore, if Link wears the Captain's Hat during the fight against the region's ruler, Egos du Iana, he will briefly be confused, mistaking him for the general who gave it to him. There was going to be an adult Link mask. Any Zelda fan knows that one of the core mechanics of Majora's predecessor, Ocarina of Time, allowed Link to transition between his adult and child forms. What fewer people know is that there were originally plans to have the same function available in the sequel. Rather than traveling in time with the Master Sword, Link would age up with an adult Link mask. In early versions of the game and test footage, the mask could be seen paired to a C slot. However, the dev team ultimately felt the transformation would add little to the game. Unlike Ocarina of Time, Link could use most items as a child, and with 3 alternate forms, the somewhat redundant mask was cut. Even stranger, there was also a child Link mask found not in Link's code, but with Skull Kid. The song Farewell to Gibdos is a callback to Super Mario 64. Zelda games have always had cheeky references and Easter eggs to Nintendo's flagship franchise, Mario. Many players will have noticed the Mario mask that the Happy Mask Salesman wears on his back. However, this isn't the only time Majora's Mask tipped its hat to the famous plumber. Those with a keen ear might have noticed a familiar song after restoring the river next to the Music Box house in Iana Canyon. The tune playing that banishes the mummy-like Gibdos circling the house is nearly identical to the one that plays in the level Boo's Big Haunt in Super Mario 64. Specifically, the music is from the merry-go-round room where another undead creature, Boo's, circled and attacked the player. A hidden paper airplane. Every game contains hidden details that don't really seem to exist other than to give a little bit of flavor to the world. These little bits are often not able to be interacted with and serve as pieces of lore scattered around. But there's one in Iana that is weirdly without explanation. Atop one of the towers in the ancient castle is a paper airplane, seemingly without reason, adding nothing of substance to the game. You can't do anything with it, it adds nothing to the story, and is utterly without context. It's just a piece of the world perhaps thrown up by a re-dead when they were still living, trapped at the top of the stone for decades or even centuries. There's an accidental Star Fox cameo. The order of masks on the select screen may seem random, but fans quickly noticed that the Keaton Mask, Brimman Mask, Bunny Hood, Don Garrow's Mask, and the Mask of Sense make up the second row. These, of course, correlate to a fox, bird, rabbit, frog, and pig, which are also the makeup of the team in Star Fox, with the final spot correlating to former member and traitor Pigma Dengar. Some theorized the masks were ordered this way as an intentional reference, a tip of the hat to Takaya Imamura, Majora's art director and one of the driving creative forces behind Star Fox. However, Eiji Aonuma said that the reference was not intentionally done, although he couldn't rule out a developer putting it in and not mentioning it. You can kill an NPC. Typically, characters you can interact with in any Zelda game are either enemies that can be damaged or NPCs. Even the Koroks are able to survive endless abuses from more sadistic players in Tears of the Kingdom. While the thief Sakan is certainly nefarious and even evil, he is merely an NPC, and not an enemy you can fight, with your attacks doing as little to him as they would any other character. Even in the one instance where you can slash him with your sword when he steals the old woman's bomb bag, your cuts won't kill him. If you choose to shoot Sakan with an arrow instead, or the hookshot or Zora Link's boomerangs, the bag will explode, leaving no trace of it or the thief behind. If there was any doubt about him being blasted to smithereens any run where he explodes, Sakan is absent from the rest of that 3-day cycle. The Happy Mask Salesman may be based on Miyamoto. Almost immediately, players noted that Zelda creator Shigeru Miyamoto bore a striking resemblance to a minor character in Ocarina of Time, the Happy Mask Salesman. That character was elevated significantly in the sequel, serving as the one to set Link off on his quest and seemingly possessing omniscient knowledge. He is outwardly friendly and helpful, but contains a hidden, angry side. This was something that the developers have also pointed out about Miyamoto, who had taken a backseat role in the game's development. The salesman gives Link the seemingly impossible task of retrieving the mask in 3 days, just as Miyamoto gave his team only a year to develop this game. Whether he is meant to be a literal embodiment or avatar, as some believe, or just a cheeky shout-out has never been confirmed. Nevertheless, once you see that toothy grin, it's impossible to deny the similarities.
でそこをどんどん積み上げていったので、結構初めて遊ぶ人から上級者までいろんな遊び方ができる遊びができたと。
It grew out of Ocarina of Time Master Quest. After the phenomenal success of Ocarina of Time, a plan was devised for a remixed version for the 64DD peripheral. It would have featured reworked dungeons and other elements, and would have been known as Ura Zelda. However, one of the head designers tasked with heading up the project, Eiji Aonuma, had little interest in reworking an already completed game. Instead, Shigeru Miyamoto tasked Aonuma and fellow project lead Yoshiaki Koizumi with creating an entirely new Zelda game by reusing the assets and engine of Ocarina. With Miyamoto staying on in an advisory role, the team completed the game in just over a year. Ultimately, Ura Zelda would be released, although not with the team originally intended and not on the 64DD. Instead, the retooled version was known as Ocarina of Time Master Quest and was available as a bonus disc for GameCube alongside The Wind Waker. A longer cycle. While a day-night cycle is a fairly universal concept in video games today, it was a much more novel concept in Ocarina of Time back in 1998. This was partially what inspired the creators of Majora's Mask to take a repeatable cycle of days and nights, originally meant to last a full week. However, there were several problems with having the cycle last 7 days. The first of which was programming the entire thing, as the team was already on an incredibly tight schedule and dealing with immense crunch. More importantly, perhaps, were the practical effects of repeating the full week in-game. Keeping track of dozens of NPCs and side quests over a period more than twice as long as the eventual 3-day cycle would have been nearly impossible, and frankly a nightmare for players to keep track of. Skull Kid has different animations from the telescope. An important moment in the game comes when Link takes a look at the Skull Kid through the telescope in the Astral Observatory, triggering the moon tear to fall to Earth. Most players will see him mockingly slap his butt at Link before jumping toward the moon. This cutscene takes place if triggered on the first and second days. However, as a sign that the mask is truly taking over, if viewed on the third day, he is far less playful, staring Link down and twitching. What's more, you can even look at him during the final hours and see him possessed and floating, about to bring the moon crashing down. At this point, the imp is so consumed, he doesn't even notice Link watching him. Some songs have hidden uses. Unquestionably, one of the most important songs in Majora's Mask is the Song of Healing. Many of the story's most important moments require Link to play it to progress. Time after time, he helps the broken people he comes across. But there are other uses for the song that are a little more surprising. In addition to healing wounded souls, it can also fix broken signs. If you play it for Sharp's ghost, for a moment it will appear to soothe him before he says it no longer has an effect. To heal his undead soul and bring water back to Iana, you need the Song of Storms. And that, too, has a hidden use, as it can break the jinx placed upon Link if he's hit by a blue bubble, as well as getting Link out of a soft lock late in the game. Turning butterflies into fairies. Fairies are, without a doubt, one of the most useful things for Link to get in any Zelda game, as they can heal him and bring him back from death. Grabbing as many as possible in bottles is a great strategy when going up against a boss or particularly tough challenge. However, they aren't always the easiest things to come by, especially in the overworld of Majora's Mask. Luckily, there's a trick both in this game and its predecessor to use one of the most common, and on its face useless, items to acquire a fairy. If you happen to spot a butterfly floating around, bust out a Deku Stick and let the insect land on it. And voila! Free fairy. Tattle's dialogue changes. One of Link's greatest companions, Tattle, has an incredible character arc over the course of the game. Starting off antagonistically, she begrudgingly becomes Link's ally and, by the end, his closest companion. However, as Tattle is the one person who travels back in time with Link, she's also the only one able to remember events you've already done. If you've already beaten the game, some of her dialogue during the confrontation on top of the Clock Town Tower will change. In fact, she somewhat breaks the fourth wall. She'll tell Skull Kid she won't let things play out the way he expects them. And after the giants stop the moon from falling, she'll also know Majora's Mask is about to reveal itself and that it controlled Skull Kid, much to the surprise of her brother Tail. Developers voiced their frustration through NPC dialogue. Majora's Mask was infamously affected by crunch, with many team members consistently working overtime and pulling all-nighters. The feeling of dread and the need to complete the project with a deadline looming over them was definitely felt in the final product. Like the designers, many of the characters are attempting to complete their project before meeting with a terrible fate, particularly the carpenters. Tasked with readying the town for the festival in 3 days as they contemplate their doom, the characters became a mouthpiece for the overworked dev team. Script writer Mitsuhiro Takano confirmed that many lines of dialogue from the NPCs reflected what they were feeling, including working long hours and being away from their families. A 70s anime inspired the inside of the moon. One of the game's most visually striking and surprising moments is when Link heads inside the moon in pursuit of Majora's Mask. In front of him is a large grassy expanse with a hill containing a single tree in front of a sky that doesn't seem to move. Those who felt this was reminiscent of anime endings were spot on, as it was directly inspired by space battleship Yamato. The anime featured a climax on a similarly eerie planet that bears a striking resemblance to the inside of the moon. Thematically linked, both Majora and Yamato see their protagonists travel to a bizarrely serene landscape away from the Earth to try and save it before a strict deadline. Yoshiaki Koizumi stated that the picturesque scene was more unnerving as it was in contrast to the strangeness of the rest of the game. The stars are determined by your name. This secret was almost completely unknown to Western players, until a modder discovered it in the code more than 2 decades after the game's initial release. The night sky and the arrangement of the stars and constellations are directly linked to the name the player chooses in any given save file. While this Easter egg has no bearing on any gameplay, it's fascinating to note that someone who named their character Link will see different heavenly bodies than someone who named the player after themselves. It goes to show the dedication the developers put into the game's skyboxes, which were some of the most impressive and beautiful on the Nintendo 64. The hidden GameCube reference. The Zelda team has a history of putting in cheeky references to upcoming projects, and Majora's Mask is no exception. Arriving late into the Nintendo 64's lifespan, plans from Nintendo were already in motion for their next generation console, which was known by the codename Dolphin at the time. Well, near the Scarecrow inside the Astral Observatory, you'll find a few pots, underneath which sits a somewhat crude drawing of a dolphin, a shout-out to the upcoming device. Less than a year later, Nintendo would release their next console, and Project Dolphin's true name was revealed, the Nintendo GameCube.
Nintendo GameCube.
Goron Link plays bongos because of A.G. Aonuma. The most musically inclined Zelda at the time of its release, and arguably to this day, Majora's Mask featured distinct instruments that Link could play in each of his 4 forms. Of course, Goron Link, in a somewhat unique decision, plays a set of bongos. While this seems like a fitting decision for the stoic race, it also stems from lead designer Eiji Aonuma's own musical talents. He revealed that he was part of a large band of Nintendo employees that would perform multiple concerts for their co-workers each year. Aonuma, of course, would play percussion, his favorite being the bongos, leading him to put the instrument into the game. Zora Hall's references to Zelda's musical past. Zelda has some of the most iconic music in all of gaming, with instantly recognizable tunes in every entry in the franchise. It makes sense then that many of those songs would pop up in the most musically important spot in Majora's Mask, Zora Hall, the home of the band the Indigo Goes. In each band member's room, using whatever instrument that particular member specializes in, a different theme is being played. In Japas's room, we hear the bass player covering the dungeon theme from the original Legend of Zelda. Meanwhile, in Evan's room, the player is treated to the Game Over song on piano from that same game. Finally, the drummer Tiho plays a rendition of the cave theme from A Link to the Past. Termina's space program. Those entering the bomb shop may have overlooked the giant rocket in the corner of the room as mere decoration, but upon closer inspection, it seems it has a very specific purpose. On the walls, there are pinned schematics of the rocket and a letter reading Planned Moon Trip Experiment Memo, try using bomb-powered flight. So, it would seem the owners of the bomb shop had designs to use their products to launch their rocket into orbit and land on the lunar surface. The 3DS remake even added to this with diagrams showing a moon landing also pinned to the wall. Of course, ultimately, these plans may have been unnecessary, as the moon came to Termina instead. Inspiration from a West Virginian urban legend. One of the most entertaining and meaningful side quests in the game involves defending Romani Ranch from a group of invaders on the first night. Failure leads to the beings, simply known as them, abducting the cows along with the farm girl Romani. The cows are gone forever, and Romani falls into a comatose state when she is returned. These details, along with the fact that they seemingly arrive on a spaceship, point to them being space aliens, something unique in Zelda. In fact, they are inspired by a very specific urban legend about an alien known as the Flatwoods Monster. They bear numerous similarities to the tale stemming from West Virginia in the 1950s, including arriving on a ball of light, glowing eyes, and a strikingly similar body shape. Perhaps most of all is the feeling of unease from both creatures. The Brimman Mask is based on the Brothers Grimm. While most of the masks have names that are fairly self-explanatory, where exactly the Brimman Mask got its title is a mystery to many players. The mask is given to Link as a reward for hearing the confession of a member of the traveling Gorman troupe. The musician admits to having stolen the mask from the leader of an animal troupe he once belonged to, a dog that the man was jealous of. His tale is actually a subtle reference to a fairy tale from the Brothers Grimm about a musical troupe of animals. The group, one of whom is a dog, travel to the German town of Bremen, which gives its name to the fairy tale, Town Musicians of Bremen, and of course, the mask. The Triforce only appears in one specific place. Despite appearing throughout Hyrule as an important religious symbol, the Triforce is noticeably absent from Termina. Even character models from Ocarina of Time that were reused and featured Triforces, like the soldiers, were typically tweaked so their clothing and armor would not have the triple triangles visible. This makes sense as Termina has no concept of the three goddesses, instead focusing on the four giants and a goddess of time. The Triforce only appears on stone blocks and near Stone Tower Temple, visible specifically when viewed upside down in the case of the latter. The fact that it is underneath the blocks and seems to be a disrespectful depiction of the sacred relic being licked has led to some interesting fan theories. One notable one states that the ancient civilization that built the tower did so to defy the goddesses, in a tale inspired by the story of the Tower of Babel. A wedding and Korean nukes inspired the best side quest. Two things that set Majora's Mask apart from other entries in the franchise are its melancholic atmosphere with doom looming overhead, and the focus on side quests involving NPCs with intricate inner lives and schedules. Nowhere were both elements more prominently featured than in the quest to reunite Anju with her missing betrothed, Cafe. Any player who completes the side quest will be treated to a bittersweet reunion between the lovers, accepting that, regardless of whether or not the world ends, they will be together. The inspiration for such a beautiful and forlorn moment came when, during the game's development, the team attended a wedding. This was just as North Korea was testing its missiles, with wedding attendees knowing Japan could theoretically be struck at any time. Those who completed the side quest and the main story would be treated to a special cutscene during the credits, a wedding. Know of any other interesting fun facts about Majora's Mask? Head to the comments and let us know. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Mojo Plays for more great gaming videos every day.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.